Hi, I'm Steve McCord, Cattaraugus County Director of Veteran Services, and this is Our Veterans, Their Stories, preserving our heroes' stories, one story at a time.
My name is Vernon Robinson. I'm originally from Washington, D.C. I grew up in Southeast D.C. In poverty, and I wanted to make a change in my life, and I ran into a lot of roadblocks, and I figured the United States military would be the best bet. I did not want to go in any of the other branches. I was strictly convinced that Marine Corps was the one that I needed to choose. When I went into the Marine Corps, it was tough at first. I knew it was going to be tough. I wanted the discipline. I wanted something that was going to change me, mold me into something better. The Marine Corps did just that. It helped me to control my attitude, how I carried myself, the explosiveness that I carried when I would lose my temper. The Marine Corps helped to calm that down. When I was in boot camp, and there was a moment where I was being belligerent. There was something I was tasked with doing, and I pretty much was flat out refusing. And it just got to a point where a drill instructor got involved. I mimicked and idolized Mike Tyson when I was a teenager. So I was pretty confident in my fighting skills. I did not mince or hesitate with anything. You know, actually, my first reaction was usually just to swing and go for the jaw, quick knockout. So a drill instructor had got in my face, and I was literally ready to throw blows with him because I just was not intimidated at all. And then a senior drill instructor who, as when you first come into boot camp, you tend to draw into the senior drill instructor. He's someone that you look at as a father figure. You know, he's someone that you idolize. He is the complete package. You know, so you want to mimic everything he does. So it was like, and not having a father figure in my life. When I was going at the one drill instructor, the senior drill instructor came up from behind and literally hit me in the back of the head with a rifle, and basically told me to get going. And I stopped for a second and turned his way, and he hit me again just to let me know, hey, you're not going to do that with me. Get going. So I hate to compare it to a dog, but it's kind of like when you have a dog on a leash and the dog is pulling, and you give it a little tug, and then eventually the dog starts moving forward, and then it starts going. That's kind of what I did. He kind of nudged me along with the rifle butts to the head, and I kind of moved along. So that was one incident, and there's a lot more to that story. But that was one of those moments where I stopped, and I had to think about this. You know, did I literally go through all of these troubles to sign up and get selected to go into the Marine Corps just to throw it all away because I have an attitude problem? You know, and so I kept thinking to myself, you know, what would this person think of that? What would this person think of that? You need to get it together. So it was a lot of self-talking, self-motivating. So that was my way of keeping myself in check. And then the second incident actually happened in Okinawa, Japan. And there was another incident where I had a breakdown, I'm going to say. And I said some words and said some things that I probably shouldn't have. And sergeant put me in check, and I knew I could take him, and at the time I was willing to take him. And so he went about a methodical way. He basically took me out on a weekend and had me do work filling sandbags with rocks. And I'm not talking about little small rocks. I'm filling them up with big rocks, and had to use a shovel. The shovel can't pick up the rocks, so it was frustrating. It was, and my option was either do this or go right to the break. So I was right back at the incident that I was when I was in boot camp. Are you going to throw this all away because you're being belligerent, and undisciplined? So eventually ended up doing what the sergeant wanted. It lasted from dusk till dawn. and it was nightmarish. When I got back to the barracks, my knuckles were bleeding. I was tired, exhausted. My hands were bleeding. I had blisters, calluses all over. I literally went into my room. I got down on my knees next to my bunk, said a prayer. I can't go on any more than that because I can feel myself getting emotional. So it taught me a lot about leadership, and from there I seemed to prosper. I went through the ranks pretty quick to get to Corporal. When I went into Parris Island, South Carolina, October 1989. And I got off the bus, and I wasn't shocked at all. I was literally just at Parris Island 2 weeks prior to watch my best friend graduate. So I already knew, what to expect. I already knew about the drill instructors and the whole 9 yards. So when I got there, the only shock that I had was that I was in a warmer climate and dealing with the sand fleas. Upon graduating, January 90, sorry. We were the first unit, Platoon 2000, we were the first unit to graduate with dress blues. From there, I went to school to Camp Lejeune for combat training, MCT. After I completed that, then I transferred over to Courthouse Bay. That is when I went to engineer school. When I went to engineer school, I didn't know what to expect. It was in the back corner of the base. And when I went in there, I was given the MOS 1171 as a hygiene operator. It falls under engineers, utility engineers. When I went in, we were basically water purification. We learned everything we needed to know about that. We got certified in all of the equipment and everything. But once you get out into the fleet, it was a totally different thing. Upon graduating there, my first duty station was Okinawa, Japan. I was stationed at MCAS Fatima. It was at MWSS 172. And I was with the maintenance unit. I was there roughly a week or two. And I was actually in utilities, and then they moved me to a maintenance unit two weeks later. And from there, I learned a lot about the maintenance and the mechanics of our equipment. I think that helped me to propel myself for later down the road. I turned into a bit of a MacGyver. I was always into things, trying to figure out how things worked, so it helped me out. While I was there in Okinawa, I was deployed to Operation Team Spirit in Busan, Korea. It's now called Busan, Korea. And I was there for a month and a half. Very cold, huge contrast from Okinawa, Japan. Okinawa was a tropical landscape. Korea, it did get cold in the winter, and we got there by ship. And it was an experience. We did all of our work pretty much in the rain and cold. That was our first experience with our rain gear that we were issued, Gore-Tex rain gear. So that was an experience. Road trip back to Okinawa, and from there I had a few hiccups in the military. Were not really a hiccup, but I asked and received an invitation to #1 school in the Marine Corps, Marine Security Guard School, and that's MSG school, embassy duty. I went there, and I was there for about a month, and I had some girl issues, made a dumb move, and basically made a career move based on a woman, and instead of pursuing my dreams. So I came out of that program and was stationed in Camp Pendleton, California. From there, I ended up with 7 engineers, first FSSG. While I was there, I ended up getting the rank of corporal. I ended up with a squad, 15, 17 guys and girls. We were a good unit. We all, worked together. We all did a lot together. It was very diverse. So it was an interesting dynamic. I had a lot of trust my Marines, and they trusted in me. We took care of each other. We looked after each other. Whenever we deployed, I try to rotate them and take certain guys with me or certain girls with me to evenly distribute it. But majority of the time when we went out in the unit, we did a lot of preventive maintenance. So while they were out doing PMs, a lot of times I would, because I was a corporal, I would do the training. I would also go over their paperwork, make sure that as they were doing their PMs, that they were doing them correctly. And then we'd schedule trainings usually in the evening, and we'd do one-on-one either on the usage of the equipment, to try to make sure that while they are working on the equipment and doing the mechanics of it, that they also understand the operation side of it still, because it can slip your mind from school once you go, to a base. And just doing that repetitively and trying to keep the readiness numbers up, because that was the most important thing, to keep the readiness up. We stayed in the 95, 98 percentile, so we were always, ready to deploy. So from there, I did a few deployments, small deployments on base. I actually did one deployment to Arizona, where I worked with Fort Benning Army unit along the U.S.-Arizona border. What was it called? The town of Y was nearby. I can't remember the Indian Reserve, but it's way down on the border. So out in the middle of nowhere, but we were out there for about 3 months. And then we made myself back to Camp Pendleton, and I wasn't even there a month, and Somalia happened, Operation Restore Hope in Somalia, Africa. General ID'd and a few other warlords in that country when the government they collapsed. So once the government collapsed, these people came forward and they decided that they would try to run the country. So you just imagine you have a bunch of people that are high prominence in a city, and they say, "I'm going to run it." "No, I'm going to run it," and everyone's fighting among each other. Meanwhile, the UN comes in and they're trying to provide food, water, because the government's collapsed, there's fighting, there's bombing of the roads, so there's no way for food and water to get in unless you airlift. So then it got to a point where there was a lot of famine, and these people needed help. So they decided to send in a unit, military. The UN got a group together. They all came in and they tried to help, and things kind of escalated. So that's where Operation Restore Hope came in, where it was basically a collaboration of all the UN forces. And everyone was there: Australia, France, the Brits, United Arab, Afghani police. It was a collaboration of all countries, and we were all there. We all worked together. And so while we were there, we were providing support of utilities, and we set up different bases, I should say, all over. And basically we were in the rear. But when we first got there, the famine was so bad. Literally, when we got off the plane, as soon as you opened up the door on the plane, you can smell the decaying bodies in the air. And we locked and loaded. We got briefed, and once we got to the gate, we went out single file line, so many feet away from each other, the vehicles. And it literally, as you were driving down the road, there was body, a cow, another body, and I'm talking adults, kids, senior citizens, you name it. The stressful part was that you couldn't engage. The rules of engagement were difficult. You couldn't shoot unless shot upon. And as you were driving out, you can see the guys, they're out there walking with AK-47s or little rocket launchers, and they're literally just walking nonchalant and just watching us, and we're watching them, but we're all disciplined. We don't dare, go into fire. We're sitting there on safe, keeping point, staying vigilant. So that's the way it was in Somalia for the entire time. You were just you're on edge. You were ready. And in the first few weeks, We got shot at quite a bit by snipers, literally from the embassy wall. Even though it's all flat, there was 8 feet, 10-foot wall, maybe concrete, and the guys would just get up on the rooftops and just shoot at us. And you'd hear the whistle of the bullet go by. It's close, but we didn't shoot back because we're inside of the compound. So we just send someone out there to go get them. Usually it's pretty successful, but our unit did pretty well. We didn't have any casualties in our unit. We did have an injury in our unit, so someone close to all of us. But for the most part, everyone did well, and we all returned alive. So some people call it success, some people call it a failure. As we know, Somalia still doesn't have a government that's thriving anyway. They were able to do something, but it wasn't from the Operation Restore Hope. It was many years later. Shortly after we left, I'm going to say 3 to 4 weeks after we left, was the Black Hawk Down incident. And unfortunately, it was after that incident that they decided to withdraw from that operation. And so other operations have happened since then. So we were the first Marine support unit to get there. And we were there prior to any of our equipment getting there. So we pretty much slept out in the elements for 2 weeks. That was an experience. We ended up getting everything going, getting tents built, electricity, water, sewage, all of those things built. We were able to accommodate shower, laundry facilities. So we had the whole thing set up. And once I was set up there, I was shipped over to the embassy side. Once I got to the embassy side, myself and a private, we worked over there. We took care of things over there, got water on deck. Actually, that was my first time purifying water from a well. So we were able to do that, get water on deck. And then from there, I was sent up to Baidoa and then Bardera, where I spent a few months. From there, everyone pretty much returned back home. So myself and private that was with me, we were the last ones that were in country from our unit. We were attached to BSSG 7, and we stayed there until May of '93. And then shortly afterwards, I got out of the Marine Corps and early exit, terminal leave in September of 1993 with honorable discharge in October of 1993.
Talk about race relations in the Corps. You being African American, would be a minority. Did you experience prejudice, or how did it work?
Yeah, growing up, I don't want to mince words. Growing up, you always hear that the military is a white man's military. So it was something where, over years and years, you hear stories and you read stories about how African Americans are treated unfairly in the military, despite the fact that we will go in and do the same jobs and defend this country the same way anyone else would. We were still pushed aside or looked upon differently. When I personally went in, I had come from an area, like I said, Southeast DC, where the demographics is 99% African American. So I wasn't culture shocked or anything from it, because when I went in, I was used to working downtown DC around Georgetown. So I was used to the different personalities, backgrounds, things of that nature. So when I went in, boot camp was pretty easy. I didn't run into any issues where it was race related. I'll say that happened once I got out into the fleet. Once you get out into the fleet, you start coming across different personalities. You have different people that are from different walks of life, different backgrounds, and they're not used to the cultural differences. And then when you start putting together a squad, there's different ways that everyone talks. There's different ways everyone calls cadence. There's different ways that everyone carries themselves, the way they dress. So, where one person's not used to seeing someone wear their hat backwards, another one may not be used to seeing snuff in their mouth, or cowboy boots or a hat, So All of those things played a role. While they're small, they played a major role, just getting used to that dynamic. Another one would be when you're in a room, you have 3, 4 guys and you're a lower rank, and you're sharing the room, and you have the music is a big one. You'll have one guy that's strictly country, that's all he's ever known, or bluegrass, and you have someone that may be hard rock, and that's all they've ever known, speed metal, let's say. And then you may have another guy that all he's ever listened to is R&B and soul, and that's a huge blend, that's a huge difference. And so those guys learn to work together, come up with a plan. I know for my room, I was using that same example. For my room, that we alternated. We learned to compromise, alternate. We listened to each other's music, learn the music. Next thing you know, you're humming, country bars, while you're getting ready in the morning, So everyone worked together, But there were a couple of instances where I wasn't used to some of the jokes and some of the comments that were made, and guys, when you're free time, you're together, and guys would start telling jokes, and then someone would make a race joke, and then things would get heated, and overall it would be taken care of. But yeah, it does exist, and it's definitely there. There was rumor of some guys that were part of different organizations that were pro-white, and we got along, as long as they do their job, they come to work, do their job. We didn't have any issues. But once that projected out into your decision making, into your working with others, whether or not, am I going to be able to trust you when things get hot? Are we going to be able to look out for each other and back each other up? And for the most part, I felt like yes, we could. You preach that everyone is green once you're in the military, so we keep that in the back of our head, and yeah, I've grown close with all of the guys and girls that I was in the military with, and I was honored to be with them. Once I got out of the Marine Corps, when I first moved when I came to New York, I moved to Friendship. After my fiance at the time, after we settled down and started working, I immediately signed up at JCC and started utilizing my GI Bill. So and that was a big help at the time.
And what are you doing now?
Currently, I run the warehouse operations for National Grid for the Olean, Franklinville, and Wellsville region. I've been doing this now for 12, 13 years. Prior to that, I was working at Hinkle Loctite as a production supervisor, first line, and I did that for 13 years. For the most part, in my entire military career, I try not to say I would change anything, because if I would have changed anything, then I would have never have gotten married. I would have never had my kids. I would have never ended up here, and who knows what would have happened in my life. But I do know I wish I would have stayed in Marine Security Guard school. Embassy duty, like I said, is the #1 school in the Corps. I was accepted to it. It was an honor and a privilege to be a part of it. The training was very extensive, and you were part of a unique group. You get to work with ambassadors. You get to go from country to country, and you end up getting knowledge and being affiliated with the State Department. So it kind of sets your life up a little bit differently. So, and I think that lifestyle, I was willing and able to do. But like I said, I had, I let my judgment, cloud me, and it was clouded, and yeah, I made a different choice. So, but other than that, I don't regret it. But when I got out, I wrote down a lot of stories, and I always talked to my kids and told them about things. And eventually someone said, you should write a book. And so that's what I did. So it was about 6 years ago, I had a book published, A Change Is Gonna Come, a memoir of life's harsh realities. And it's available online, anywhere you buy books online. It's self-published and unedited. So it's roughly almost 300 pages, and that's a lot smaller than what it was. I had to remove a lot of pages, but it gives a lot of detail, and it basically illustrates my life growing up and everything I've dealt with, all of the pain, all of the sorrow, and just saying to myself, a change is going to come, something for the better. And I think that's happened. That's so anytime I can help someone else and give that back, I try my best to.